Oh, I do have to. I'm just messing with you. I think I do. I don't ever use the other one.
All right. So looking at 20 from the problems. First thing I'm going to do is identify the values for A, C, H, and K. Cool there. Okay. I know the period is pi times the absolute value of C. So in this case, the period is pi. I think that was one of the things it asked for in the question. And then we'll write our transformation map. So Cx plus Hay plus K. Is that okay? And then we'll just take our key points for tangent. And perform the transformation on them. So the x's are not changing. Anything that you do to undefined stays undefined. The y's, though, are multiplied by 2 otherwise. So if we wanted to graph that, does it give us an interval to graph this over? Let's look real quick. Negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi, okay. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Drop this in here. So we got asymptote here at negative 1/2 and positive 1/2. And then at 3/2 and then 2.5. And then we'll just plot our points. There, there, and then there. And then we'll just extend this through. Sorry for my messiness here. I'm trying. Just sometimes you have a bad penmanship day, you know what I mean?
I just have a quick question. So
Sure.
when it says in the problem when it says graph from the interval,
Mm-hmm.
then it did 2 pi. Where does that apply?
So when I drew my axes, I need to make sure I'm going at least from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi on the x.
Okay.
It's just basically telling you how much of this thing to draw, because it goes on forever, right? Yep, no problem. Grace. I don't think I asked you to do 20. Oh, 26. Yep, never mind. Yep, that's fine. It's like 27, and I didn't ask you to do those. Okay. So first thing we do is let's go ahead and look for the midline here. So if I do that, where does it look like the midline is here, Grace? That, right? So that's at y equals 1, so it tells me that my k is 1. Oh, that's embarrassing. Your fantasy football highlights are important right now, I'll tell you what. All right. So, sorry, basketball highlights, it sounds like. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. Next, I'm going to figure out the period. So I'm just going to look from like asymptote to asymptote. So I started at positive pi over 4 and I go to 3 pi over 4. So I must have gone 2 pi over 4. So the period there is half a pi. And since I know the period is pi times the absolute value of c, I can see pretty quickly that the c is going to be 1/2. Does that feel okay? All right. Next, I'm going to find the a. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check this height from one of those points that's given to me back to the midline. And it's a vertical height, so it's going from 1 to 4. So that absolute value of a has got to be 3. Does that feel okay? Yeah. All right. And the last thing we'll do is find our h and settle on our sign for a. So from the parent function, I'm going to use the point 0, 0, which is a midline point where the left end is pointing down and the right end is pointing up. For my transform function, I also have to pick a midline point. The one that I'm going to choose is this pi over 2, 1. And on that midline point, the left end points up and the right end points down. So I can see there, because these are opposite, that the a has to be negative. And because the x-coordinate of the parent function is 0, the h is going to be the x-coordinate for my transform function. So that's pi over 2. And we're all done. You're welcome. Alyssa.
Can you explain how you got the
-3?
No.
Oh. I'm looking at that distance there in blue. So between one of the other points given back to the midline. Right here.
So you do line with
Yep. So I'm just looking at that distance, vertical distance. No problem. So on a problem like that, you'd always be given those 3 points, right?
Yeah.
The midline and the other 2. The a is just going to be the distance from one of those other 2 back to the midline. Vertical distance. Grace, happy?
Happy.
Cool. Anybody else?
Oh, me.
Yes, Elizabeth.
I think of page 6 and
Page. Oh, on the review. Okay, that's okay. And you said B? Okay. So on a problem like this, I'm going to start by sketching a picture, because I'm not just given like amplitudes and stuff. I'm going to need to draw something. So I have a minimum at -6, -12, and a second maximum at 24.8. So let's say that's -6, -12. let's say that like that's 24.8. So it comes up, have a maximum, goes down, and say that's my second maximum there. Feel okay? All right. So I'm going to start by finding my K. So my K is going to be halfway in between -12 and +8. So if you wanted to take that as a formula, you can just take the average of those two. So there's my midline. Okay with that? And now to find the A, you can really just count, right? If you're going from -2 up to 8, or -2 down to -12, it's 10 units either way, right? Does that feel okay? Or you could subtract the two y coordinates and then divide by 2 with the absolute value around it, because again, it has to be a positive distance, or distance is positive. Okay, next we'll do the period. So how many periods have I drawn here? Well, I know here to here is 1 period, and here to here is another half. So this is 1.5 periods. And there I'm going to be looking at the distance between the x coordinates. So if I started at -6 and I'm going to +24, I must have gone 30 units. So I know that a period is 2 pi times the absolute value of c. 2 times 1.5 is 3. So I get that c is going to be 10 divided by pi, and I'm choosing a positive c like I always do there. What? Well, it's 1.5 times 2 pi, which is 3 pi. Is that okay? So I just skipped a I said it, but I said it fast, so maybe we just, you know, I have those moments. Still doing okay? Yeah. Okay. So the last thing we'll do is pick whether we're going to use sine or cosine. Find the value of h and set the value for a, or set the sign for a. We're doing okay? Clarification? We good?
I'm thinking the 1.5 is that just because that's what's written?
Yeah, so this is 1, and that's a half. Because I don't know where that point is at 1, right? Yeah. So I can't really, you know, I can find the length for 1.5 periods pretty definitively. Is that? Yep. Okay. So which type of trig function do I want to use here, sine or cosine? Well, 1 is certainly going to be easier. Yeah, which one? I would use cosine. Okay. You know why I would use cosine? Because I have maxes and mins.
Oh, yes.
Okay. If I had midline points, I would use sine. And the reason that is because I'd like to be able to use that x-coordinate 0, or have a 0 for my x-coordinate in my parent function. It makes the h trivial to find. It's not like a big deal if you don't, but it just makes it that much more of a little bit of a hassle. Okay, so which point from the transform function do you want to use? -6, -12, or 24.8? Okay, it doesn't matter which one. You can get a correct answer either way. And we note that that is a minimum. So because we're going from max to min, what does that tell me about my A? It is negative. Okay with that, Elizabeth? And because the x-coordinate of my parent function is a 0, the x-coordinate for my transform function is my h. And now I got everything I need. Does that feel okay? So again, the trickiest thing there was probably getting the C out of that, right?
Yeah.
But drawing the picture, I think, helps enormously, right? If you didn't draw the picture there, I don't know how, I'm not sure it'd be tremendously obvious how many periods you really were talking about.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Last call on questions. Not that you can't ask more later as you come to stuff, but we'll save those as individuals.